the article is about K-State and Wichita State and the basketball series that isn't. Okay, Kansas has not played Wichita State since 93. K-State has not played Wichita State since 03. With Darron Boatright.
Scheduled since, because they play in the NCAA tournament.
Well, okay.
I don't want people getting on you for that.
Okay, scheduled in the non-conference. It has not been a non-conference series since 93 for Kansas and 03 for K-State. But Darron Boatright apparently is upset with K-State's negotiating tactics. Quote, we've made it abundantly clear we're willing to play them in a home-and-home situation, and we've made it abundantly clear that we're willing to start it at Bramlage. But our expectation is that they return to Koch Arena. Quote, they have no interest in playing us. That's obvious. For whatever reason, I don't know. But it's not the same reason as Kansas's. K-State has its own rationale, and it's very difficult to figure out. It makes no sense to me. Gene Taylor responded and said, it's not dead. We were pretty close a year and a half ago, and then Wichita State, and I'm just reading the quote here, ... things just didn't work out. I think we are still talking. It's just a matter of finding a date and the right opportunity. Okay, so all that on its surface to me still comes across as very whiny from Darron Boatright. But let's flash forward later on here. So they did, K-State tried to schedule for the 2018-19 season. Last year, K-State wanted to schedule Wichita State. Wichita State said no because they had graduated 6 seniors, lost 9 of 13 scholarship players, and obviously K-State had the Elite 8 team coming back. So Wichita State said, thanks, but no thanks. Now Darron Boatright goes on in this article after they outline that, and he says they knew our program was in reset mode, so that's the only reason they made the effort to call. That was a slap in the face. That's not serious. If they ever want to be serious about playing, we'd love to play them. Get the hell out of here, man. Like, yeah, okay, K-State acted in self-interest in trying to schedule that series. I don't think that's about Wichita State being down. That's about K-State had a team where they felt like, okay, we can go schedule. We can go play a better schedule because we're going to need it. That's a part of the job. I always think this is a quote that Bruce Weber, I'm not a fan of him reciting, but he says Gene Cady told him once upon a time, scheduling is more important than recruiting. I mean, I could not disagree with that statement more, but that's what coaches think about scheduling. It's very important. And for instance, next year, K-State does not need to be scheduling Wichita State. They need to schedule wins. They need to schedule wins with the team that they're going to have next year and how young it's going to be. So teams schedule in their own self-interest. Of course, Darron Boatright, of course they do. And to me, the timeline of events here is pretty simple to figure out. You're trying to figure out where K-State's been at with this. For a long time, okay, from 03 up until, I don't know, 2013, 2014, whenever the perception really changed, like Wichita State had enough success for a sustained amount of time.
Yeah, it was 2013.
So you had about a decade there where it was a lose-lose for K-State because Wichita State definitely could beat you, and you're not going to gain that much credibility by playing them because they didn't have that reputation yet. Then when that finally happened, okay, let's go to the timeline of K-State at that point. They did have the Marcus Foster year in 13-14, about the time that stigma is really changing and Wichita State goes to the Final Four and all that. Well, then in 14-15, a season falls apart. 15-16, 16-17, K-State's in the business of scheduling wins. They certainly don't want to do that with Wichita State. Then it comes back around to where K-State's roster is built up to where, all right, smart enough scheduling here. We do have a pretty good team right in our backyard, and we'll see if you guys want to play it. Wichita State says no. And now acting in their self-interest says no, and now is going to turn around and say, well, look, you guys acted in your own self-interest here. I'm going to whine and complain about this publicly. Get out of here, man. You guys did the same thing. And you have to understand, Boatright is like cutting Kansas slack and saying, well, I get Kansas doesn't want to play because it's lose-lose for Kansas, but K-State should be playing it. Oh, get out of here, man. Like, everybody's acting in their own self-interest here. You just come across as a whiner when you're whining about the fact that K-State doesn't want to play you unless the timing is right. K-State should not play Wichita State unless the timing is right. K-State doesn't need Wichita State for this. And by the way, Wichita State doesn't need K-State either. So that's why this strikes me as very weird. Yeah, I'm sure your fans would enjoy it, but you guys don't have some self-respect. Like if you are going to come at this from a place of, hey, we're your equal, then show it. Have self-respect here and say, well, we don't. What do we need K-State for? Wichita State, you've been to a Final Four far more recently than K-State has. Act like it. That's not acting like it. if you're going to go whining to the media and Taylor Eldridge about K-State not playing you.
I think what it comes down to in this situation is K-State is open to scheduling, teams that are going to provide benefit for them. They played a home-and-home with Marquette. That's got some benefit to it because Marquette has some of that name notoriety. They play in the Big East. Wichita State, I think in Kansas there's this inflated view of what Wichita State is in basketball, but in reality, I don't think anybody cares about Wichita State nationally now. They were cute for a 2-year stretch when they made the Final Four, and they were playing angry and telling people to watch us and all of that. But at this point, they're just another team in the American. K-State's gone through the ringer of playing teams in the American, and it came out pretty poor for them, 1-2 in the last 3 years against Tulsa. So there's no benefit to it right now.
Look, he can say it doesn't – K-State's reasons don't make sense all that he wants. There is more risk for K-State playing Wichita State than he is admitting there because, yeah, he goes on to mention, hey, we played with Baylor, Oklahoma State all in recent seasons. All right, they're not your in-state rival.
Yeah.
You're not potentially competing for Kansas kids with them. And more importantly, I think even in the recruiting angle here is just the perception angle, perception in the state. K-State has had a decent amount of basketball success here recently, but if we are talking about the last 10 to 20 years, definitely an argument to be made that K-State's third fiddle in the state in basketball. You don't want to be giving more reason to have a direct comparison there between the two, and you don't want to risk the perception hit there with Wichita State. There's something to that. You can say it's being fearful by not going and scheduling it because of that, whatever, but I think that's real, and I think that still does matter. Not as much as it used to because Wichita State's respect level has risen, but that is the thing. That's a tangible element here as to why K-State would be more hesitant to do this outside of when it's a season in which K-State feels comfortable. So, look, you had your chance, Wichita State. You didn't do it. Mm-hmm. And by the way, if Wichita State would have scheduled that game last year, yeah, last year probably would be a K-State win. Maybe not, thinking of how K-State started the season. But if we're going to go with what the roster was and how good K-State was by the end of the year, yeah, fine. You probably lose that game. But then you have the return game this year, and what do you think happens there?
Yeah.
This is why Wichita State, you go take advantage of it, take your opportunity when given, and it would have worked out that way.
Well,
what this is a whiny athletic director because his coach, I'm sure it was Greg Marshall, his coach wouldn't step up to the plate last year when given the actual chance to do this. You missed your chance. Don't cry about it.
Yeah, the only guy that might be softer than their AD is Greg Marshall. And, to go with the comments about playing Oklahoma State, and Baylor, you know who Oklahoma didn't play this year? They didn't play Tulsa, and they didn't play Oral Roberts.
Exactly.
They're not
exactly.
The only in-state school they're playing is their legitimate rival, Oklahoma State.
Exactly, because there are perception issues that are there. So, yeah.